Hey! Welcome back to Couch Talk, ladies and gentlemen. Edward, your humble host. Guys, today we're going to talk about the Kamala Harris financial plan. But before we get started, please hit like, please hit subscribe, turn your notifications on. It really helps me with the algorithm, and I need all the help I can get to get this thing off the ground. The Kamala Harris financial plan. I apologize about the nose bridge here. I'm having trouble breathing today. I don't know why, but to discuss the financial plan of Kamala Harris, or lack thereof, as you know, many times in recent interviews and on the debate stage, Kamala Harris has been asked, what is your specific plan to lower inflation? And many times, Kamala Harris has completely evaded the question. She goes into this rambling rant about, well, I was raised a middle-class kid. You know, the kind of kid where you grew up in a neighborhood where the neighbors took pride in their lawn, you know. And it's insipid, it's vapid, it's driving me nuts. You can tell it's fake. You can tell it's rehearsed. You can tell she says the exact same thing every single time she gets in front of a camera. And that's why she seemed to deliver the line so smoothly on the debate stage. But after that, she tried to improvise a little bit in some of the interviews, and it just has not gone her way. She sounds like, you know, another word salad, another Kamala Harris gaffe every single time. And she never answers the question, what she actually plans to do to solve inflation. So today we're going to talk about what inflation actually is, because I'm not sure Kamala Harris actually knows what it is. Because none of her plans actually address it. In fact, some of them might even make it worse. So this is what inflation is. What inflation is too much money following too few goods. That's it. That's inflation, right? So too much money in circulation, too much demand, and the supply isn't high enough. There's not enough stuff to buy. And so everybody's fighting over the scraps, and when they fight over it, the price goes up. So that's inflation, right? But Kamala Harris isn't addressing inflation. In fact, she doesn't address it at all. All she does is address some of the symptoms of inflation. Like, for example, her price controls. Right? It doesn't address inflation. It doesn't decrease the amount of money in circulation, and it doesn't increase the supply of goods. What it does is force people to put prices on things that don't necessarily reflect the market value, right? So that's how a free market works. Is however much somebody wants something, that's what they're willing to pay. That's what the item will be worth, right? But if you force that to be a lower number, then you're throwing off the whole market. And I'm going to tell you, guys, the price controls that she means to implement on like grocery stores and stuff, these companies are not price gouging. They're not. Their margins are very small, actually, especially since inflation has been so high. It's just like in the convenience store business, and I've mentioned this before, we actually made more money when the price was lower. When the price is higher, we made far less. In fact, sometimes we'd even lose money because if it's price shock. If the price goes up too fast or too high, people just won't buy anything at all, right? So you have to keep prices in check. And most of these grocery stores are operating off of like 3, 4, maybe a 5% margin, right? And they're happy to get it. But if you thrust these price controls on it, you eat that margin up, and then some of these companies are probably going to go under. That's my analysis. Now, I do want to know what you guys think, but that's definitely the concern, right? That's what many of these company CEOs are saying. Look, we don't have that kind of space. If you start forcing these price controls on us, we'll go under business. You know, we'll go out of business, or we'll have to like cut half the staff, you know, which is, again, this is bad for the economy, right? I think price controls are a nightmare. I think that is the absolute worst thing you can do to a free market economy because it throws off everything. One of her other policies is she plans to give out a $25,000 tax credit for first-time home buyers. So then again, ask yourself, does this increase the money in circulation or decrease? Does this decrease the money in circulation or increase the supply of goods? No, actually, it does the opposite. It actually puts more money in circulation because they're getting a tax credit, right? And guess who gets to pay for that tax credit? That's right, the taxpayers. Anybody who isn't a first-time home buyer is just going to get screwed, right? And so here we are with this tax credit that's going to give people $25,000 toward a house. Now, the good thing about this plan is that it will encourage more people to buy a home, right? One of the good things about this is that at the lower income echelon of society, you have a bunch of people who the reason that they can't build wealth is because they can't afford a home. Homes are one of those integral assets to building wealth because they appreciate in value. Instead, at the lower income level, you usually have people that they just make ends meet, right? They just have enough for rent. They just have enough to put food on the table. And for a long time, this was me. And they don't have enough to go above and beyond and get an asset like a house that will appreciate in value. They're stuck with depreciating assets like cars and whatnot, right? So the good side of this is it will encourage more people to buy homes. The bad side is it will actually make inflation even worse. It will increase the demand for homes, which will make the housing market jump in price just as much, probably more actually, because if you'll remember, $25,000 in the housing market can buy actually more than $25,000 worth of house. It can buy $200,000 or $300,000 worth of house because you're leveraging your money. You're putting it a down payment on a much larger asset, right? And so, if that $25,000 can buy a $300,000 house, well, it might actually increase the demand by more than $25,000. So the housing market might actually jump by. So if you're giving somebody, let's say a house today is worth $300,000, and you're giving somebody $25,000 toward that house, right? In the perfect Kamala Harris dream world, that's like now the house is worth $275,000 because she's subsidizing $25,000 of it. But the problem is in the real world, now instead of that $25,000 getting taken off the $300,000, now it's like you got $25,000 toward a $450,000 house because now they can charge that extra amount because people will buy it because there's that extra demand. So it doesn't work. She's actually doing the opposite of solving inflation here. Another one of her optimistic plans is to implement a unrealized capital gains tax. This thing is a nightmare. In my opinion, this will bankrupt the nation, literally. I think that anybody who runs a real estate business, anybody who runs a lumber business, anyone who runs a farm or a mine, anybody who has to hold large quantities of assets is going to get screwed by this, I guarantee it. And it won't remain there, right? In her original proposal, it's this unrealized capital gains tax is only for assets of $100 million and up, I think. But it's not going to stay there, right? It's going to start there, then it's going to go down to 50, then it's going to go down to 10, and then it's going to go down to 1. And by the time it's down to 1, everybody's going to actually have about $1 million worth of assets. So it literally will affect everyone. So, all right, here's how this unrealized capital gains tax works. And this is just an example because, like I said, it's for 100 millionaires and up. Let's say you buy a house for $200,000. And over time, that house goes up in value to $300,000, right? Now, that $100,000 is a capital gain. Normally, you would pay taxes on that when you sell the house and you actually get that money in hand. But what Kamala Harris wants to do is she wants to tax you the moment that house goes up in value. So your house could go from $200,000 to $300,000, and you got to pay taxes on that already, 33%. Then the next year you could lose value, but you've already paid taxes on the higher value. And so you could literally be paying taxes on an asset that you never actually get money from. Your asset could stay the same price over time, and you would just never actually get the money from it. And meanwhile, you're paying taxes. And when it goes down in value, trust me, the IRS is not about to give you money back. I promise that. They might do some kind of like rollover where, you know, that's just a buffer for capital gains tax in the future. But guys, this thing is a nightmare. Again, everybody who operates at these small margins, like my real estate business, the one that I run, is an extremely small margin because repair costs are very high right now, and everybody, like, and tenants just destroy your property. They don't care about property that isn't theirs, right? They just don't have that same sense of ownership in it, and so I have to repair it all the time. There's things that get. One of the properties that I got was a lemon, so I've been having to fix things every single year in that thing since I've owned it. I have a very small margin. I do not make much on my real estate business, and I'm not anywhere near the $100 million range. I'm not even near the $100,000 range. But if I were, I would be in trouble if they took, like, if I had one year where the assets, you know, jumped from 100 million to 115 million, or let's say it went from 100 million to 115 million. It's fine, right? And then I got to pay 33% of that gain, which is $5 million. That might be bigger than my entire margin. And then I go bankrupt. Then I have to, then what happens is I'd have to sell one of my assets just so that I could pay taxes on the unrealized capital gains. And then when I sell that asset, guess what happens then? Then I have to pay realized capital gains tax. So this is just, it's just outrageous, guys. This is just another way to double tax somebody, triple tax somebody. It is going to bankrupt the nation. It is going to put a lot of people out of business, or it is going to allow people another mechanism with which to evade taxes, right? It's going to be, people are going to start playing games where they report asset loss, even though they don't actually have asset loss or something, but they can make it seem as though they do, and they'll like siphon it off. It's a nightmare. It's just going to become another game where the rich get richer and the poor stay poor, and this tax just serves almost no purpose. And again, it doesn't address inflation. It doesn't actually solve the underlying problems of the economy. Now, Trump, conversely, has some items that do sort of address inflation, but we'll talk about Trump in a little bit. I don't like all of his financial plan either. Some of the stuff I like, some of it I don't. The one thing about Kamala Harris that I liked is that she's going to try to get more home ownership in general. But other than that, everything else, most of the stuff she's got on her financial plan is copied. Like, almost nothing is hers, right? She either has, like, copied stuff from Trump, like she copied his no taxes on tipped employees. She copied his no taxes on Social Security, which, I mean, that makes sense to me anyway, because if the government is giving you money, it doesn't make sense for the government to take off money from money. Anyway, point is, it never made sense to me. I don't like Social Security at all, because I think it violates the 10th Amendment to be run at the federal level. But even if I did, it never made sense for it to be taxed. But Kamala Harris copied those two, or she copies from Biden. Everything else, she's got all these tax credits are copied from Biden's playbook. So literally she has no creative thought in her brain. I mean, if you think otherwise, let me know below. Tell me of something that she's come up with by herself. Because she darn sure doesn't say anything in her answers. She just tells you about how she was a middle-class kid. That's all I got for you today, guys. I'll catch you next time on Couch Talk.